And the first thing actually I want you to do is just kind of look at the end and assess whether or not it needs a sharpening. We're going to sharpen them either way. It's good to get a little bit of practice. We're going to grind them. We're going to hone them. When you open the assignment page later, those of you who start on this, it's going to ask you to take a picture of what it looked like when you started. So you're going to take a picture, boop, put it into the notebook, and then we're going to move on to grinding. Okay? Now, yeah, there's going to be before and after. Thanks, Jonathan. You're right on the money. So we're going to grind them regardless. Now, hopefully nobody starts with one that's really nicked up. If it's really bad, maybe just check with me. The other thing actually that you should check is just put a square on it. I wonder if Kylie, would you grab me one of the little squares there? Thanks. So you can put a square on it and just see if the end is nice and square. So the one I'm starting with is actually in pretty good condition. There's no nicks. It's nice and square. I would still take a picture, but there's a primary bevel. And what do you guys think? Is there a secondary bevel on there? Is a nice shiny tip? Yeah, it's actually pretty good. Like, it's got a nice polish on there. This one doesn't really need sharpening, but we'll do it anyway. Okay? So then going to the grinder, there's a couple things that you need to know. First off, this tub here needs to be filled with water. This is why we use this machine, because when it runs, whoop, that's not supposed to happen. Hang on, sorry. It's a little finicky. There we go. When this runs, the stone is going to be coated with water. Why do you think we want water on that stone? It's more than that. You're close. We want it to be wet. Anything we're trying to avoid here? Yeah, we're trying to avoid heat. So years ago, I used to use our regular bench grinders to do this. And if you took too long or pressed too hard, you'd see the steel turn blue, and it would totally destroy the steel. So it keeps it cool. Yeah. So when you guys look inside this plastic container, there's actually a line in there. The water should be up to the line. The water should last quite a while, but if you needed to, you could top it up a little bit. But don't go over the line or it'll start to splash all over the table. So that's pretty simple. The first time I turn it on for the day, it actually soaks up a lot of water, so I had to keep adding it, but we should be good for today. Okay, so we'll turn that off. Now on the front of the machine, just with magnets, there's this little jig. And this thing is incredibly helpful for you. The first thing you're going to do is, using the little notches around the outside, is determine what angle this was ground at in the past. Okay, it should be at 25 degrees. So if you look here, we've got 15, 17 and a half, 20, 22 and a half. There's 25. I'm going to take the 25 notch and just slip it over the end of the blade and just try to decide, was this ground at 25? This one was. Now, if you have one where it doesn't fit and you try maybe 22 and a half and that's a fit, that would still be acceptable. And what we would do is then grind it at 22 and a half, so you don't have to remove a ton of metal to sort of do the angle. If you're 2 degrees off either way, that's okay. But here's where it gets a little complicated, is you have to change this little protractor tool to reflect the angle you're trying to make. Okay? So for instance, I'll just use this guy as an example. This one was ground at 25 degrees. It's an exact match in that little notch. That's what I want to keep it at. So I'm going to loosen this knob. Is that showing on the camera? Can you guys tell? Yeah? Okay. I'm going to loosen that knob, and then I can turn this little pointer. I'm going to point it at the angle I want. So 25 degrees is all the way up here, 25, and then I'm going to tighten it down. Okay? This side, please don't change this. This is a way we would adjust this down as the wheel slowly gets smaller. Okay? But I've already set that one up, so only do the angle side. Alrighty? So now we're going to take, this is our holder. This is going to be going on the machine like this, and it's going to clamp your tool and hold it at the correct angle. Okay? The first time you do this, it's a little bit tricky, but let me sort of try to describe how this is going to work. What you want to do is, first off, you'll see a little picture showing a chisel, and that the chisel is pushed all the way to the right-hand side. You can see the little picture there. I don't know if you guys can see that too. So you want to make sure that your iron or chisel goes all the way to the right-hand side, because there's a little stopper in there that's going to make sure it's sitting square. It's not at an angle. So you're going to do that. And then I find that I want the tip of the chisel or plane to project out the front about an inch, inch and a quarter, inch and a half, not like way out and not barely out. And it's a little hard to explain why, but when I put this on here, you're going to sort of see. So what we're going to do is we're going to clamp it about there. So just turning both handles one after the other until it's tight. Okay, nice and snug. We want that to be secure. So you can see how it's sticking out a little bit and it's pushed up close to the right-hand side. And then what we're going to do is slide this on. It should just freely slide on there and just tip it down and look at how it rests on the stone. This is where you're going to use your common sense a little bit. Let me just turn this to the side. Let me see if that's going to show on the camera. Yeah, that's perfect. So what you can do is you can look from the side and just sort of gauge, is the chisel resting on the stone in a position that makes sense? Like this is where you catch, oh, actually I put it upside down, right? I'm grinding the flat side. We do not want to do that. So you're going to catch that. Or you look at it and maybe this has been, somebody's adjusted this way up. And you look at it and you're like, no way. I want this kind of angle and it's like that. Okay, so we're just kind of roughly getting it in place. So if it is off like this, what you can do is loosen these two handles in the back here. And then there's a little adjuster nut. If you turn it this way and then give it a little push, it's going to move down. And as I do that, we'll turn again. As I do that, the angle of the blade is changing. And I'm sort of watching from the side, trying to get it to where it looks like it's going to grind at the angle I already have. Okay? Now, back to this guy. This is your final checker. This is your tool for checking. It took me a while to learn this. You might need to ask for help, but hopefully this makes some sense. What we're going to do is we're going to take the rounded side and put it on the stone, and we're going to rock this forward until this is sitting on the plane. Okay, now I don't know how well this is going to show on camera, but do you guys see that there's a space on that side? My goal is to get the plane at the angle where this is sitting tight. Okay, so to do that, the blade's got to go down a little bit more. So I'm going to loosen that adjuster. You might have to push this rod down. We'll keep going down. We're getting very close now. I'd say that's almost perfect. Right? I'm thinking right there. Okay, so this piece is now sitting tight against the blade. Is that making sense so far? It's kind of a lot of little steps, but you just sort of have to try it for yourself, is really the biggest thing. Okay? If you get that angle off, though, boy, you're going to grind and grind and grind and grind, and nothing's ever, it's not going to turn out. Okay? Now, if you had the right amount of blade sticking forward, this is going to be at a height where this freely slides. What I've seen before is where people put their blade out too far. By the time they get the angle right, this piece is like touching the stone. So try to aim for that roughly inch to inch and a half sticking out. So I'm ready to grind now. See how this can move up and down? It can move side to side. When you turn the machine on, don't have it resting on there. Just pick it up a little bit. Press the start button, the green button. And then what I'm going to do is hands on either side. I'm just going to rotate it till I hear it and just slowly glide it back and forth. That's it. So the setup is the hard part. The actual grinding is easy. We're just going to keep that moving back and forth. And what I would say is when you're first getting started, maybe go for about 1 minute, and then we'll pull it off and see what we did. And you'll find out pretty quick if you had it at the right angle or if it's off and that bevel's in the wrong place. Our goal is to get a nice, fresh surface on this. I don't have to press very hard, but just a little bit of pressure using my fingertips seems to do the job. And I did just put a fresh surface on the stone. Some of you watched me do that. I was using a diamond tool to fresh the surface of the stone. Okay, so when I want to see what I got, I'm just going to roll it up a little bit. You can actually slide it right off the end. Try to shake the water into the machine. Keep some paper towel nearby because you're going to make a little bit of a mess. There's going to always be some that spills. Okay, so I'll try and show that on the camera. Yeah, I think you can see it, and I'll try to show you guys. So notice that I'm getting a nice freshly ground surface, but it hasn't gone all the way edge to edge. And likely that's because the previous surface was not ground nice and straight like I am doing now. So what do you think I have to do? Just keep going. Okay, don't undo these. Don't change any of your settings. Once the settings are there, it's dialed in. You're just going to keep going. Okay, so this particular blade is going to need probably another minute or two of grinding. I'll tell you this though, if you're grinding more than about 5 minutes, you might have to think, ooh, did I maybe put this at the wrong angle? Am I doing something wrong here? I always get nervous when somebody's grinding and grinding for half an hour, because just think, if they ground it wrong for half an hour, think how long it's going to take to get it back to right. It's going to take a long time.